we are. Welcome to the Master's Dungeon.
DM tips and tricks by, I guess just us. I don't know. Would you consider us pro dungeon masters?
I mean, we're pretty decent, a solid decent.
I would say a solid decent. I put myself 6, 7 out of 10.
There you go. That's solid.
So,
I agree. 6, 7 out of 10. That sounds like a fair
I put you
assessment.
probably more towards an 8.
I don't
8
know
or
about-
9.
I don't know about all that. I do decent.
Decent.
I've been playing for a minute. For a while. So either way, this episode is about, of course, traveling. We have to make traveling great again. Apparently there's been lots of struggles making traveling fun, making traveling enjoyable.
I feel like it is a hard line a lot of times to balance. Like even, I don't really say like even for me, like I'm a super pro, but like you don't want it to be, all right, this whole, well maybe you do, this whole session is all just like, you know what I mean, this whole fucking campaign is just traveling versus you fast travel when you're there. So I think there's a balance that you want to draw, and I think the most important thing when doing it is to fit it to your campaign and your players. So for example, for the one I got coming up, I'm probably going to unveil that Beastmaster this weekend.
Finally.
A lot of that is going to be, and I told my players beforehand, it's going to be kind of travel heavy. So for something like that, letting travel take longer and having more of these on the road encounters and more of, hey, you guys need to eat, you need to rest. What are you bringing to rest? What kind of equipment do you have? That's going to be part of the campaign, and I feel like when you have players kind of sign up for that, they're a little bit more, involved with it, to where it's like, hey, we're doing a dragon slaying campaign. Everybody's piped up to be like, all right, I got my dragon slayer equipment, I got all this going on. The destination is what's important. Whereas this one, I did kind of let people know, hey, I think the travel is what's important on that one. So I think for me, and I'll let you kind of interject here, but on these types of campaigns where it's like, hey, you're going to be traversing a lot of the world involved into it, I think the big thing for that is consumables, items. Like, try to push that on your party, give them a lot as rewards, so it's like, it feels like there's a little bit of cost to traveling. So it's, you might use like a bag of wind to get there sooner. You might have certain magic items that help with food and discover. So it feels like your players are getting something out of it, and that travel costs something, and that there is stakes to the journey. But also let them lose a little bit when they're traveling. I think especially off the start, and as the players get better, it becomes easier and easier for them.
Yeah, I agree completely. Looking into traveling with D&D, or really any roleplay system, looking into it, in D&D, it just used to be, here's a hub city, and then there's a dungeon. And all it was going to the dungeon, clearing everything out, and then coming back again. It was never really about the journey.
And I don't think necessarily, if you've got a campaign set up, I don't think there's anything wrong with having the destination be the main thing and the journey be completely secondary. But I do think too, like especially if you're in the business of building your own world, I think the journey can be a great way to show the players that, and show the players lore. Like have Joe Leatherheart be somebody they pass on the way there, and it's like, oh shoot, is Steven Leatherheart your brother? And it's like, yeah, that he runs the adventure top in the hub city. And you're like, yeah, we bought a lot of stuff from here. And he goes, yeah, he lives there, I farm out here. And it makes your world feel a little bit more inviting if you can do, maybe not just that example, but maybe small tie-ins, so the things that are happening in your hub world are known and heard about, maybe slightly differently. Maybe it's been exaggerated a little bit by NPCs and things that you encounter on the journey. And I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. When it comes to traveling, it's there's always that optional, that fast travel option. It's always, sometimes it's nice. Sometimes if it's an area they've already been through, they already cleared, they already know it's safe, or they already fought the bandits that were on the road, they already did anything that could really happen on that, I don't see why not you can just skip on past that. But the issue comes is when they're going to some place they've never been to. That's when they really goes into more exploring. And then, what about the place that they're in? Is it dangerous? That's another possibility. Like in the Magic campaign, travel for the most part is kind of rough.
Mm-hmm.
All these Magic users are traveling, and then what happens if an Inquisitor comes by?
You get hunted by the world. The world comes to find you.
The world comes to find you, and that doesn't happen in every campaign. Mm-hmm. So every campaign's different. And the players, you also got to watch the players. I know quite a few players that enjoy the journey just because they get to act out their character. And that is huge, just huge, that those precious, even if it's half a session where you're traveling, you still get some moments where the players actually get to play out their characters. They get to, I go ahead and do something with my cauldron. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and hunt something. I'm going to go ahead and annoy this character,
And I was actually glad you said I had that written down, but I forgot to bring it up. Like the on-the-road travels. I don't really think you should have bandits, but you don't want bandits to be, you're getting ambushed by bandits. All right, we're going here. You're getting ambushed by bandits. You don't want it to be every one. But what you said about the players is, hey, take stock of your players. I think that's the best thing you can do as a DM. If you've got a ranger in the group, and this is how I set up my encounters. I feel like some DMs, and I think sometimes on maybe major bosses, you should set up encounters so it's like, the player has this ability, let me set this up so the player's got to do it without what they have. Generally speaking, I'll do that sometimes on major bosses, but I like setting something up to where it's like, hey, this might be rough for the paladin and the fighter, but the ranger might be like have the exact ability they need for that. And then the next time I do an encounter, it is a strength encounter, the barbarian's going to go nuts here. So have your encounters be varied. So one of them might be, hey, you got a low-level party, dire bear comes through and attacks.
Oh, good dire bear.
Ranger, wild empathy. That's a decently easy wild empathy check. Maybe it can send the bear on the way. Ranger looks like a hero, and your barbarian, your fighter, don't get swallowed whole by 1,500 pounds of pure bear manpower.
That's a lot of food.
And then on the next one, it's somebody's trying to rob him, and the barbarian gets to crush your skull. There's the bandit example again.
Yeah, bandit again.
But different things. I think making the more often you can. It's for me. This is where I really struggle. Making the environment an obstacle.
Yes, I agree with that.
Is really good because then that makes the world feel real, and it makes it. If every single one of your encounters on the road is an NPC or a hostile, it's like I might as well be walking on a flat plane, right? Like I might just be on graph paper trucking along.
Exactly.
Try to describe. You don't have to go into a ton of detail, but hey, what are they going through? As you approach the river, you notice the trees around you get taller, wider, as the canopy starts to encapsulate you over and set a mood a little bit, and then it kind of fields up, and maybe you have an encounter at the river crossing. So this whole time it's kind of building. You notice the trees even still higher, wider. The even more sunlight's blocked out. It's almost night as you approach this, and then once you reach the trees get the tallest, the widest, most of the light shined out. There's an encounter there, whether that's crossing the river where it's not pitch black, but it's so hard to see because the light's out. Unless you got some people with dark vision.
Dark vision.
They got that dark vision. Or there's a monster waiting. That description helps build the world. And those environmental encounters can be good for your skillers, a rogue, or somebody like a bard that might have like a utility spell, like Dancing Rope. All right, I'll cast Dancing Rope, and we can all kind of, it'll go across, and I'll tie it to that tree over there, and now we'll tie the rope to this tree, and everybody, the river's real strong, but we'll hold on to this rope and go across. I do feel that like at the heart of it, D&D is. It a lot of times it is kick the door in, but it's an adventuring game. I think you should have a sense of adventure and a sense of an environment and a world that is larger than what the characters could ever explore. Like it's begging to be explored, and there's never enough sessions to really know what all is out there, and you just hope you get to see some of the cool stuff.
Part of it, yeah, absolutely right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let's see.
I can look at my notes too.
Let me look at my notes here, boys. Oh, here we go. Here's a good question. How do you practice or improve describing your environments? From Fanfi.
Honestly,
let's hear it.
There's two ways. The first way and the best way, just do it. That's my advice to people that are always going to DM. Just do it. Especially if you have some experienced players. They can, as you kind of do it, they might, they can give you a few tips or hints, or it's nice to have someone there if you don't know a rule too well. You can go, I think it operates like that, and you can defer to one of your vets and say, does it, we play 3.5, the rules lawyer handbook.
Oh, God.
You can say, hey, does it work like this? Or as a DM, just make a ruling. As long as it's cool with your players, it's cool. The other is, for descriptions, I will literally, as I'm sitting there, I will say it in my head as I'm designing the encounter. I will, my example before with the trees, I'll go, all right, what's going on in this land? It's got this, this, and this. What's a cool thing to do? And then I'll put a note. A lot of times I don't write shit down. I should write shit down. My tip should be write shit down.
You should write shit down.
But in practice, what I do is I'll say, hey, remember when they go into super mega forest, that as they get closer to the center, the trees get bigger. And then I'll kind of write up like a little, in my head, a little description and recite it as I'm drawing or making whatever on my map. It's almost like, and then I'll go, no, I don't like that in my head, and then repeat it and fix it. But it's almost like a practice in the mirror situation a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Sometimes I will say it out loud sometimes and just try to hear it myself and see how it sounds. And the other thing I do, I don't think about this a lot, but I picture myself as a player. I think every DM is a player at heart, but it is what would you like to do in that situation? Like if you do get to a situation and the mechanic is trees get bigger, they get higher up, the canopy gets darker. As a player, what would you be thinking? Is there something out in the woods? Will I be able to see this? Put yourself in a player's perspective and think about what you would be thinking might happen as a player, thinking what you would see in your head as a player, and then as a DM, grab that. And a lot of times, that's going to help engage your players, because if you can grab what they're going to think and put little hints of what might be out there, it's, again, your world's going to be begging to be explored, because you might say, yeah, trees get bigger, darker, everything, and you think you might see a little bit of eye shine over to the left, but you weren't really sure. It might have just been a part where the sun was peeking through. And then suddenly it's, maybe now we just don't have to cross the water in the dark. Maybe while we're crossing this river in this dark canopied forest, there's something else hunting us. But that's what I do. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm talking forever.
No.
That's what I do to practice. Is it's almost like a mantra I recite in my head until I like the scene, until my player brain says, "Wow, that's cool.
This is good. I can see it now." Yeah, Exactly right. Yeah, definitely with theater of the mind, it's good to imagine what they're seeing and what would be going through their head. What would their characters be looking for first? The ranger might be looking at the trees first. Somebody else might be looking forward down the road, trying to see when the journey will finally end.
Sometimes I build a character for my own campaign.
No way!
So that way I know. That's my guy that's like, all right, what's going on here? What would I do?
What I've always realized, whenever we make campaigns, we really all, as DMs, make campaigns that we as players want to play in.
Right?
Every time.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how it is. That's just what we do. But yeah, that's normally how we practice on improving, or describing our, elements. I think definitely reading books and going through other descriptions that they go through, because some books do amazing with descriptions.
Steal everything. Put your twist on it, but steal. If you watched a movie and you're like, hey, this movie, the way they made this environment, the thing they passed, or
that idea was great.
Like Lord of the Rings, passing over the
why didn't they just take the eagles?
The mountains. Yeah, I know. Passing over the mountains and watching that. If that was a scene you were like, holy crap, that's cool. Steal that. Maybe twist it. Maybe instead of being a snowy mountain, it's a deep, lush, vine-ridden side of a mountain, and the players have to not only, instead of trudging through snow, they're trudging through brush, and if they misstep, they tumble over. Steal ideas whenever you can.
Yeah, and travel is also good because there's no... Who knows what kind of locations you could find. And not only locations, but special locations as well.
I do think an element...
Because, just think of Skyrim. There's so much when you just walk. Oh, let me just go to this city. Oh, no. Oh, no.
12 hours later, you still haven't made it.
12 days later, you're like, what was I even doing trying to get there? But I think that's definitely a good way to introduce some kind of locations. Or if you know that the boss there is supposed to be decently tough. Oh, they're going to be level 11. They're only level 8 now. Let me go ahead and let them get stronger. Let's go ahead and introduce all these different locations or adversaries, like bandits and rust monsters are great that we haven't really used at all.
Rust monsters are great. We haven't really.
But there's 10,000 different things you can guide them through. So that way, all right, they're just about the right level to deal with the enemy because the stronger the enemy and the players defeat them, they feel stronger now. They feel bigger and better.
One thing I would say, random encounter tables or roll for encounter tables are there for a reason, but I would use them pretty sparingly. I do think I like them, but if it's all right, you wake up this day, it's this day of travel, let's roll.
Yeah.
All right, it's been about 12 hours or 4 hours, let's roll.
Yeah.
It's like have some, as they start a journey, have set pieces. So it's like, all right, there'll be this major encounter, this major encounter, this major encounter, and then maybe in between it's like, we'll sprinkle a random encounter in, see what it is. Because I do feel like that helps too if you're going through the lost, dark woods that are feared by people all around. I think it helps to have stuff in there that's maybe a little too low for the party. Most of it be right about their level, so it's a good, decent fight. And maybe there's some stuff in there because this is supposed to be the forest, right?
It's the Lost Forest, goddamn.
Goddamn, there's some shit in there where the party should run away in fear because there's no way they can roll out of it. Granted, I think that danger should be, telegraphed to the party very much that, hey, there might be some stuff in here that's very, very scary.
Hey, it doesn't have an arm or a leg. Be terrified. Telegraphed.
So they know, but I do think random encounters have their place, but I would not lean on them
so heavily
for your whole travel experience, right?
Correct. They do exist for a reason, but they haven't. Most people don't end up using them. As far as the people that I know that DM, just because there's so much randomness on there. Mm-hmm. Unless, of course, a situation would call for it. Normally, I think whenever we do travel, we end up doing roll that d30. Let's see what that luck is. Let's see what this segment of travel or this day of travel, if it's not that far, let's see what that's going to end up doing. And then if it's, real low, then you might get an encounter. But for the most part, as far as traveling, I think we go pretty gentle.
One thing I liked, I think I'm going to implement.
Here we go.
Is, I know I said you don't want a random encounter every day.
Yeah.
But instead of random encounter, roll for weather. Every day when you're on a travel.
Weather's big.
I think weather could be a huge thing because it's just like they got a wagon. Oh, it's a downpour on a dirt road. What if you guys get stuck for a day? Even more if the party's if it's like the Magic where there's Inquisitors and stuff after the party. That itself feels like there's a higher stake, and you can lead to an encounter just from weather happening. Or if you have environmental hazards, narrow caverns or crevices to cross, rivers to cross, and it's snowing or a torrential downpour, suddenly your DC on those crossings, you can say, you know what, because it's so nasty out, it was a DC 15, I'm going to up that to a 17 because it's slippery, it's wet.
It's rough.
But I think weather is a cool way to help. And any type of weather is going to add to your description. It's something that's immediately grabbable by just about any player. That they can say, oh yeah, I know what a torrential downpour is. That happened last week.
No joke. Yeah. I think that's absolutely. One
thing that somebody brought up, I don't know how I feel about this. I was thinking about implementing it.
Here it is.
Somebody did a roll system for like heavy travel campaigns, where it would be instead of all right, you bought 60 rations. Keep track of your rations. You got to eat. Mark down a ration. You got 59. You got to eat. Mark, and you have to like do all this. Make sure the party eats every day.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, did you eat breakfast? And the DM's got to remember it. The players got to remember it. They got to remember what's on their sheet, and add stuff down. They did a roll system to where it was like, all right, you do it once a day, but a barbarian's got like a D6, so he rolls for how many rations he had. A wizard's got like a D3. They roll for how much stuff they ate that day. And the same thing with travel materials like arrows and consumables. And it's more, instead of being like, in this combat, I fired 8 shots as a ranger, so I use 8 arrows. It's like you abstract it. So it's like there was a combat, I rolled for it. During the combat, I did, maybe I did 12 arrows, even though I only shot 8 times, because it was like, maybe the actual combat with the rolls isn't exactly what happened. It's just like an interpretation of it.
Yeah.
But somebody was talking about that, and I was like, I don't hate that idea, because then it's like, hey, you had a big food roll and you used a whole bunch of rations. It's like, well, maybe some stuff went sour, or maybe this happened, and it's like, it kind of makes sense, but also I don't know how I'd feel about it as a player.
That's exactly. I don't want to unnecessarily cuck my players.
I also don't feel like it's that much easier either. But somebody had brought it up, and I think it's a cool idea, and it might have a place for some things. Like, I definitely feel like the arrow thing, because it's like, I don't want to keep track of how many shots I had during combat. So to say, instead of me counting them, to say roll a D12. That's how many arrows you fired.
Oh, God.
I think that's kind of a cool idea at the end of each combat. The food thing and the consumable thing, I don't know if I'd use it for. But somebody, I'd seen that out there. I can see you don't like that at all.
No, I don't like that idea. Now, I can understand doing like skill checks. So in 4th edition, I got the books out there. I should have brought it in here. In 4th edition, they had like skill checks.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say everyone's going through, and of course we got the well-known skill checks. Oh, survival. Oh, knowledge, geography. Things like that. And but that leaves only like rangers, druids, maybe some skill monkeys out there that have all these skills that could do anything. So people like the fighter, oh, you out.
Yeah, you're
People
out.
like the wizard, sorcerer, you guys are out. And that's a little bit rough. So having ways, I guess, they could help would be like the fighter being like, well, can I use like some sort of athletics check or a strength check to, throw down a log or something, so this way we can just walk across the log, maybe try and make a shortcut.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that. And just put a DC behind it. That way you can be like, yeah, roll a strength 13 or 15 to knock over this rotted, log here.
I will say, one of the other things I like doing with travel, and this is one of my sneaky DM tips, put an obstacle. You don't even have to figure out how the party's supposed to cross it. It's probably better that you don't. Let them try to figure some stuff out, and whenever you hear something that makes some sort of sense, run with it, man.
That's perfect.
Let them run it. Yeah, let's just like, I learned that more as a DM, is I don't always have to have like,
all the answers.
oh, here's an answer. Here's 1, 2, 3. This is the 3 approaches they do. Just put an obstacle there and let them go wild. Sometimes that gets you in a little bit of trouble, but most of the time, even if it does get you into trouble and the party does something kind of wacky and stupid, it's a good memory for the party. They have fun with it. Or it's like something to where you're like, that's pretty fucking clever.
That's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I found that in the rogue campaign. Oh, that's all I had to do. Here, let me give you guys a mission, and I'm just going to create the world around you as you guys are going through it, and let's see what you do. Fortunately, that turned into a lot of fires, but,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of missions did get completed.
Yeah, I did like that. Red Rogue is pretty legit. The one last thing I think I have with travel,
Oh, yeah.
to make it more interesting,
Yeah.
is especially in campaigns, again, it's entirely based on the campaign. I feel like depending on what you're doing, you can do a whole lot of it. You can make it fairly quick. I do like the idea, especially in a destination campaign, make the first outing a thing. But then once they've discovered that city and they've been to that city, it's like, hey, you can kind of fast travel it. I like that if you're in a campaign where you really don't want to deal with it too much. But in a campaign where you're dealing with a lot, you're going all over. If you have a set piece where it's like, all right, there's this big dragon in this tall mountain, let them see the mountain when they go past it and describe it and like, make it stand out a little bit and they go through it. And then they're over here, they do stuff, and finally when they're leveled up and it's time for them to face one of the dragons in the area, they've already seen that area, and it helps it tie in, and it makes the world feel more organic and natural when you can say, he's at that fucking hooked mountain with the snow over here, and it's got the trees that don't even go all the way up it. They've recognized it, and it's something they can go to before. They might even get, if you describe a river coming down from it, they might say, hey, instead of going straight through the woods, why don't we paddle upriver and get some canoes or something like that? And it just helps build the world and makes it feel more organic. But I do like the idea of location dropping to stuff that the party's not even going to interact with as they're traveling through an area.
Correct. Just to give them good memories. And I think that's probably one of the best things about the journey. I mean, look at Lord of the Rings. The whole thing is,
it's just the journey.
Epic journey. Let's go ahead and
just
journey forever, and they still manage to make it fresh and new because it's always an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Even when we go on adventures, it's always something. Somebody pulling on cars, Sunoco stickers. Anything could happen on adventures or journeys. But yeah, creating little moments of memory, I suppose, is probably one of the best things you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Give them a great description of something. Let something funny happen.
I'd say something wacky too.
Have something wild happen, and have it not really affect the players too much. But
one thing I do kind of like is to put stakes to a journey. Have items rotate. So maybe something happens. It's like, somebody rolls a nat 1 ride check. They crash the wagon into a tree as they're going over some type of cavern, or not cavern, canyon, river, something like that. Some of their items drop out. That really sucks, right?
You're right.
But then with those special roads where it's like, all right, somebody rode pretty good today, or there's an opportunity that if they wander out in the woods, I'm going to put some secret cave here that's got some stuff. They find some shit in there. So it's like you don't want to overly punish them and make travel, so they're so depleted at the end of it. But make it to where some resources deplete, but along the way they might find some other stuff. So it kind of either evens out or ends up a little bit more in the party's favor to where they arrive at the destination a little bit different than when they left.
Correct.
I really like that idea.
Yeah. And then more together as a team, I would suppose, by taking the journey together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely really up to the players in campaign. And the DM should probably discuss that with the players, letting them know. That's probably pretty huge, getting that one-on-one time or one-on-many time, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Doing that 0 session, saying, hey, this is how the campaign's going to be. This is how we're going to run it. Travel's a big thing. Travel's not a big thing. Combat's a big thing. Yeah, I think that's pretty huge. And sometimes it's good just to go to players and be like, hey, what do you want to play? What do you want to do?
That's fair, too.
That
is fair, too.
But, yeah, that's probably some of the best campaigns I've made.
I think so. I think that has all my notes. I mean,
yeah.
Basically make the world part of it. NPC encounters are great, but try to have something that's going to be some combat, some skills, location drop.
Locations are big. Secret locations. Anything
you can do that foreshadows. I think one of the coolest things you can do is party travels past a tree and there's wanted posters up for something. It just says, hey, there might be a bad dude here. Whether they come into play immediately or 3 sessions down the road, I think it's a cool thing just to have happen. Anything the party can remember.
Yeah, the big memories are huge.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, 100%. I think that's how you make travel better.
I think so too. I think we both. I didn't have this written down, but I think it came down to something memorable.
Yeah, something memorable. Oh no, I got the line right here at the end. Create little moments of memory.
Create little moments of memory.
And that was big. I think that was that really encapsulated it all. Got to make it good for the players.
All right.
Is that it?
That's all I've got written down.
Is that it? All right. Yeah, I think this. Episode 1 of the Master's Dungeon. Hope you all enjoyed it.
Hopefully you made some memories.
That's right. Made some great memories. All right, everyone. Don't forget, may the rolls ever be in your favor.